السلام عليكم. مرحبا بكم في قناة ChadNass تي في. اولا نقول لكم عواش مبروكه وليله القدر مباركه ان شاء الله. تكونوا دوزتوها في ظروف جيده. Okay, as I said before in my previous video, I promised to talk today about writing, and I have chosen to study how to write a letter. And then I should explain that there are two types of lectures concerning the baccalaureate program. So I can begin now with talking about informal lecture, because there is formal and informal lecture. I'd like to begin with the informal lecture. As you may see here, I have drawn a kind of, let's imagine the paper on which you are going to, or you are supposed to write your lecture. So this is your paper, and then you have to respect the format of the lecture. So let's begin by explaining how we should make this format of this lecture or this paper and how it should look like. So as you may see here, this is a paper. So we can begin. The first thing to do when you write an informal letter is begin writing your address, okay, at the top right corner here, not left but right corner, the top right corner of your paper. Then when you finish your address, write the date. So we can put some numbers. This is the first step. Number two, write the date on which you write this lecture. And concerning the address, if you are writing to someone who lives abroad, means who doesn't live in Morocco, for example, who lives in Europe or USA, you have to mention your country, for example, just to make it easy for sending this lecture. And the following, when you finish this corner, you come here, yes, and you write the salutation. For example, dear, and then you write the name of the person you are sending this lecture. And then we can call this, we can write this number 3. And then number 4 is the opening. So the opening is when you are addressing your receiver or the person whom you write this lecture, this informal lecture. So you say, for example, how are you? For example, you can say, for example, number 4, we can talk about some expression that can be used. For example, you can say, how are you? How are you? That's an opening paragraph of the informal lecture. You can say also, I hope you're doing well, for example. I hope you're doing well, for example, or doing well, and so on. Okay, this is for number 4. And you can write this opening in 2 lines. It's most of the time it's very short. Okay, we should not be too long in this opening. So number 5, you notice here the body. The body means why you write this letter. Okay, here the body is where concerning the number 5 is where you are going to talk about the content of the lecture. You are going to talk about the content on your lecture. What do you mean by content? In Arabic we call this المحتوى أو المضمون. So say why you are sending, why you are writing this lecture. Say for example, maybe for example we can talk about some examples of the content. You want to know the news about the other person whom you are sending the lecture. You want to ask him some information. You need some books, for example. You need some materials. So you are going to mention this in this part. Means the body. Means the body is a kind of paragraph where you mention why you are writing this informal lecture. Now we move to closing. Closing. What do we do in this? Closing is as the words means you are going to close your lecture, for example, by saying closing. You are going to summarize the lecture. Summarize the lecture, and yes, ask the person or invite the receiver to write back as an answer, for example, to answer you or answer. So what are the expressions we can do in closing? Is number 6. In closing, we can write, for example, some such expressions that are most of the time used in these lectures. We can say, I can't, for example, I can't wait to see you. I can't wait to see you soon, for example, or I look forward to receiving your news. Okay, so these are some expressions used in closing an informal lecture. Now we move to this part. I can say best, for example, which is number 7. So you are now finishing your informal lecture by using some expressions. In 7 we can say 7 here. Best wishes, for example, best wishes, or send my regards to, for example, to someone, and like this, for example, my regards, okay, just my regards, or just my love, or lots of love. There are many ways, there are many expressions we use to finish our lecture, and then at the end you sign your name. Okay, just sign your name to show. Sign here your name, your name. So that's I'm talking here about the format of an informal lecture and how your paper should look like. So I can say that concerning the informal lecture, and to show or to make the difference between, informal and other types of lectures, is that an informal sentence is most of the time written to friends, for example. Okay? You write these informal lectures to friends or to relatives, for example. I mean by relatives, for example, cousins, or family, or uncles, aunts, and so on. Okay. Or some family members, or like this, something like this. So written to family means we understand that this informal letter is a kind of personal. It's personal, okay? So we can call this a personal letter, for example. Okay, so we can allow ourselves to use some expressions of tenderness. Tenderness, for example, we show our tenderness. We can show our love. Why not our sympathy, and so on. Okay, so this is what when writing an informal letter. So we understand that we are writing this informal letter to friends, okay? And we use these expressions of tenderness, love, and sympathy. So that's all for informal letter, but the main thing to retain is please try to remember this format of the informal letter. So, thank you so much, and please, if you have any questions, as usual, if you have any questions in your remarks, please write this on your commentaries, and as usual, don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell. Thank you so much for watching, and please, before finishing, I want to tell you that in my next video, I'm going to talk about the second type of letter, which is formal letter. So see you, inshallah.